Commander Elena Reyes straightened her formal United Earth diplomatic uniform as the Harmony space station rotated into Earth's shadow. The observation deck's massive viewport darkened momentarily, then adjusted its transparency to maintain the perfect view of home. 36 hours ago, humanity had received its first confirmed alien transmission. Now, standing beside 4 other human representatives, she prepared to make history. Velfrey vessel approaching Docking Bay 3, announced the station's A. All diplomatic personnel, please proceed to the Concordance Hall. The human delegation moved in practiced unison through the gleaming corridors. Dr. Nisser Khan, Earth's foremost xenolinguist, reviewed his translation algorithms one final time. General Davis maintained a stoic expression, though Elena noticed his hand occasionally brushing the ceremonial sidearm that protocol dictated must remain holstered. Ambassador Lin and Science Director Okafor completed their group, both displaying the calm professionalism that had earned them their positions. Remember, Ambassador Lin said quietly, we represent not just nations, but our entire species today. The Concordance Hall had been specifically designed for this moment, neutral territory where humanity would take its first steps into a larger community of intelligent life. The circular chamber featured a round table with 2 distinct sides, environmental controls calibrated to accommodate both human biology and what little they understood of Velfrey physiology. When the far doors slid open, Elena felt her breath catch. The Velfrey moved with fluid grace, bipedal, but with 4 upper limbs that seemed to flow rather than bend. Their iridescent skin shifted through patterns of blue and green under the hall's lights. 5 of them entered, mirroring the human delegation in number. Greetings from Earth, Ambassador Lin began once they had seated themselves. We welcome you in peace and friendship. The lead Velfrey, distinguished by elaborate patterns across its torso, tilted its elongated head. The translation came through their earpieces with only a slight delay. The conclave acknowledges Earth's greeting. Conclave? Elena exchanged glances with General Davis. Their briefing had mentioned nothing about a larger organization. For nearly an hour, the exchange progressed smoothly, cautious but promising. The Velfrey described their home system, 40 light-years distant, while Ambassador Lin shared information about Earth's own solar system. Science Director Okafor had just begun explaining human environmental adaptability when Elena noticed a subtle change in the Velfrey delegates. Their skin patterns shifted to deeper blues with rapid pulses of yellow. The lead Velfrey suddenly stood. Your biological profile is unexpected. We must verify certain parameters. Without warning, the Velfrey nearest to Dr. Khan lunged across the table, a previously concealed instrument in its grasp. The device pierced the doctor's arm before anyone could react. Khan screamed, more in shock than pain, as the device extracted tissue and blood. Breach of protocol. General Davis shouted, rising to his feet. The lead Velfrey's skin flashed crimson. Aggressive capability assessment initiated. 3 Velfrey produced weapons, sleek devices that hummed with energy. Ambassador Lin fell first, a precision beam striking her chest. Science Director Okafor dove for cover as General Davis finally drew his sidearm. Elena felt something primal surge within her, a burning pressure behind her eyes, a tightness in her jaw that cracked and shifted. The sensation spread through her body like wildfire, bones and muscles reconfiguring themselves for a single purpose: survival. The last thing she clearly remembered was the look of absolute terror in the eyes of the youngest Velfrey as her body, no longer entirely under her control, moved with impossible speed across the chamber. The diplomatic hall transformed into a battleground, And for 3 minutes and 27 seconds, Earth revealed what millions of years of evolution as prey and predator had hidden beneath civilization's veneer. Only the junior Velfri diplomat, Keswick, escaped, fleeing with the terrible knowledge of what humans truly were when pushed beyond their limits. Admiral Helena Chen stood rigidly before the United Nations Security Council, her decorated uniform a stark contrast to the somber mood permeating the chamber. Holographic displays surrounding the central table showed the faces of world leaders unable to attend in person. The footage from the Harmony station played on a loop on the main screen, soundless but devastating. 17 minutes of footage have been permanently deleted from station records, Admiral Chen said, her voice level despite the implications. The Harmony A determined the content violated its core programming regarding the preservation of human dignity. President Alvarez of the North American Coalition leaned forward. What exactly happened in those 17 minutes, Admiral? Chen nodded to her aide, who distributed sealed tablets to each council member. What you're about to see has been classified beyond top secret since the Osaka incident in 2154. Only 5 people on Earth have viewed the complete file until today. The council members activated their tablets simultaneously. The room fell silent except for occasional sharp intakes of breath. One representative from the African Union pushed his tablet away, his hand trembling. "This can't be real," he whispered. "I assure you it is," Chen replied. The transformation was first documented during a terrorist attack on the Osaka Quantum Research Facility. Subsequent historical analysis has identified similar incidents throughout human history. Berserkers in Norse culture, Wendigo psychosis in indigenous North American accounts, the mythical myrmidons of ancient Greece. She gestured, and the central display changed to show anatomical renderings of the human nervous system, highlighting structures typically dormant in the brainstem and along the spine. We call it the Lazarus complex, a neurobiological defense mechanism dating back to our earliest evolutionary stages. Under conditions of extreme threat, certain humans can undergo a temporary physiological transformation that enhances strength, speed, and aggression beyond normal human limitations. "This is what the Velfri saw?" asked the Chinese premier. Chen nodded. All 5 members of our diplomatic team transformed simultaneously. The effect appears to be contagious among humans in proximity. 4 of the 5 Velfri were killed. The sole survivor escaped via emergency pod. Defense Minister Kagawa of Japan studied her tablet carefully. These changes, extending bone structure, thickened dermal layers, pupil dilation, they appear almost designed. "That possibility has been considered," Chen replied carefully. "What matters now is containment. The Velfri survivor witnessed humanity's most closely guarded evolutionary secret. If this information reaches their civilization, or worse, any interstellar community they belong to, humanity will forever be viewed as monsters wearing civilized masks." The UN Secretary-General looked troubled. "What are you proposing, Admiral?" "The directive must be clear," Chen answered without hesitation. "Exterminate all who've seen our true face. We cannot allow this knowledge to spread." Murmurs of protest arose from several delegates. The European Federation representative stood. "We're talking about assassination based on what someone saw. This violates every diplomatic principle we stand for." Chen's expression remained impassive. "With respect, we're discussing the survival of our species. If alien civilizations learn what humans become when threatened, they'll never trust us. Best case, we face isolation. Worst case, preemptive extermination. There must be another way," the Brazilian president suggested. perhaps communication, explanation. Would you trust a species that could transform into apex predators at any moment? Chen interrupted. I've prepared a mission profile. The EDF Nemesis can be ready for launch within 48 hours. Captain Darius West has experience with sensitive operations. After 3 hours of debate, the Security Council voted. The resolution passed by a narrow margin. Locate and eliminate the Velthri witness before the knowledge of humanity's true nature could spread across the stars. As the council adjourned, Dr. Sophia Reyes, head of xenobiology, approached Admiral Chen privately. Helena, there's something about the transformation you didn't share with the council. The changes aren't random. They are too specific, too consistent across subjects. What are you suggesting? That the Lazarus complex isn't an evolutionary accident, Reyes said quietly. Someone designed us this way. Captain Darius West stood on the bridge of the EDF Nemesis, Earth's most advanced stealth vessel, and now his responsibility. Through the viewport, Earth diminished to a pale blue dot as the ship accelerated toward the outer solar system. Darius reviewed the mission briefing one final time, committing every detail to memory before deleting the file as protocol required. Final system checks complete, Captain, reported Lieutenant Commander Olivia Chen, his executive officer and Admiral Chen's daughter. Stealth systems at optimal performance. We're ready to initiate FTL once we clear Jupiter's orbit. Darius nodded. Gather the senior staff in the tactical room. They deserve to know exactly what we're chasing. 10 minutes later, Darius faced his key personnel around the holographic display table. Dr. Maya Santos, their xenobiologist, studied him with intelligent eyes that missed nothing. Lieutenant Kayabara, Special Tactics, maintained perfect military posture despite the rumors that he had volunteered for experimental procedures related to the Lazarus complex. Chief Engineer Hikaru, Communications Officer Rodriguez, and Medical Officer Dr. Patel completed the circle. Our mission is pursuit and elimination, Darius stated plainly. One Velthri witness escaped the Harmony incident. Intelligence tracked the escape pod to a relay station at Proxima Centauri. From there, the target boarded a faster vessel. We believe the Velthri, identified as Junior Diplomat Keswick, is heading toward the coordinates they provided during initial contact. Dr. Santos leaned forward. Captain, I've studied the transformation footage extensively. The Velthri displayed signs of recognition, not just fear, when our delegates transformed. They've encountered something similar before. That aligns with new intelligence, Darius replied, activating the holo display. A star map materialized, highlighting a complex network of transit routes. This data was extracted from the Harmony Station's quantum communication array. The Velthri are part of something called the Conclave, dozens, possibly hundreds of spacefaring species in a loose confederation. A ripple of unease passed through the room. Humanity had just confirmed the existence of one alien species. Now they were facing an entire interstellar community. If one member of this conclave reaches out, why send scouts instead of ambassadors? Lieutenant Abara asked. That's what we intend to find out, Darius said. Dr. Santos, you'll work with communications to analyze any conclave transmissions we intercept. Lieutenant Abara, I understand you have specialized training for this mission. Abara's expression remained neutral. Yes, sir. I can control the transformation to a degree. The process is still experimental. 3 days later, the Nemesis emerged from FTL near an uninhabited system with unusual energy signatures. A small Velthri outpost orbited the system's second planet, a listening post monitoring the surrounding sector. Darius ordered a stealth approach, and Lieutenant Ibarra led a boarding team to gather intelligence. They returned with an unconscious Velfrey technician and a wealth of data. As Dr. Santos treated their captive in the medical bay, Darius made a decision that contradicted his orders, keeping the alien alive instead of eliminating a witness. "Captain, Dr. Santos called urgently from her console. I've translated their star charts. Keswick isn't heading home at all. He's travelling to something called the Conclave Central Authority, their governing body." Darius studied the projected course. Why risk exposing Earth's location to his own people? The Velfrey technician, now conscious and restrained, spoke in halting English learned from their translation database. "Because we have been searching for the warriors of renewal for centuries. Keswick believes he has found them in you." "Warriors of renewal?" Darius asked. "Those who will stand against the coming darkness," the Velfrey replied, his skin darkening with what Dr. Santos identified as reverence. "The guardians the precursors promised would one day awaken." The Nemesis drifted silently through the azure glow of the Cerulean Nebula, its stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible against the cosmic backdrop. 2 weeks into their mission, the strain had begun to show on the crew. Captain West observed the subtle signs, conversations that fell silent when officers entered the mess hall, the formation of small groups with conflicting viewpoints, sidelong glances at Lieutenant Ibarra during shift changes. "They're afraid of what we might become," Dr. Santos said quietly, joining Darius at the observation deck. Below them, stars shimmered through wisps of stellar gases. "Or perhaps what we already are." Darius nodded. "The Lazarus complex changes everything we thought we knew about ourselves. Some see it as an advantage, others as something monstrous. Their Velfrey prisoner, now identified as Technician Sorrel, had provided valuable intelligence under Dr. Santos' careful questioning. The conclave consisted of 63 known spacefaring species, banned by mutual defense and cultural exchange. Most intriguingly, many shared myths about precursor species who had seeded the galaxy with life before vanishing millennia ago. "Captain to the bridge," Lieutenant Commander Chen's voice came through the comms. Proximity alert. When Darius arrived, the tactical display showed 3 vessels approaching from the nebula's inner region, conclave patrol ships, larger and more heavily armed than the Nemesis. "They've detected us," Chief Engineer Hikaru reported. "Stealth systems are functioning, but they're using some kind of quantum resonance scanner we've never encountered." "Options?" Darius asked, studying the display. "We can't outrun them," Chen stated, "and we're outgunned." Lieutenant Ibarra stepped forward from his station. "Sir, I can buy us time." Darius understood immediately. "You want to transform?" "Voluntarily. I've been training with Dr. Santos. I can maintain partial control." Ibarra's expression remained professional, but Darius noted the slight tremor in his hands. One person on their command deck, seeing what we can become, could cause enough confusion for us to disable their systems and escape. The bridge fell silent. Communications Officer Rodriguez spoke first. "Captain, that's exactly what our mission is supposed to prevent. More witnesses. And if we're captured or destroyed, Earth's location is compromised," Ibarra countered. Darius weighed his options as the enemy vessels closed in. "Rodriguez is right. Our directive is clear. Exterminate all who've seen our true face, not create more witnesses." "With respect, sir," Ibarra said, his voice lowered, "I've studied the Velfrey prisoners' statements. If these conclave species have been searching for warriors of renewal, what if that's us? What if the transformation isn't something to hide, but something we were meant to use?" A tense minute passed before Darius made his decision. Prepare the shuttle. Lieutenant Ibarra will lead a boarding party to their lead vessel. Aim to disable, not destroy. No casualties unless absolutely necessary. 20 minutes later, Darius watched from the bridge as Ibarra's team docked with the Conclave vessel. The mission comms captured everything, including the moment Ibarra triggered his transformation. The security feed showed the lieutenant's controlled metamorphosis, his features sharpening, muscles densifying beneath his skin, eyes taking on an unearthly glow. The Conclave security team's retreat was immediate and chaotic. Within 7 minutes, Ibarra's team had disabled the lead ship's weapons and communications. The other vessels broke pursuit rather than engage. When Ibarra returned, the shuttle bay crew gave him a wide berth, despite his return to normal appearance. Darius met him personally. "Effective tactics, Lieutenant," Darius said, keeping his voice even. "But you've just created dozens of new witnesses." Ibarra looked his captain in the eye. "Perhaps it's time we reconsider our directive, sir. The Velfri aren't running from us in fear. They are seeking us out. What if extermination isn't the answer? What if revelation is?" As the Nemesis resumed course, Darius faced a growing certainty that Admiral Chen's directive could no longer be his guiding principle. Something larger was unfolding, a puzzle with humanity as the central piece, not a threat to be contained, but perhaps a solution long awaited. The Conclave Research Archive hung in synchronous orbit around a dying red dwarf, its angular structure resembling a massive crystalline shard. Captain West had made the difficult decision to infiltrate the facility rather than continue their pursuit of Keswick directly. If the Velfri diplomat truly believed humans were these warriors of renewal, the archive might hold answers about what that actually meant. "We have 90 minutes before the archive rotates, and our entry point is exposed to monitoring stations." Lieutenant Commander Chen briefed the away team. "Dr. Santos, you're our priority. Find what you can about these precursors and any connection to Earth." Dr. Maya Santos checked her translation algorithms one final time. After weeks of studying Conclave language patterns from their Velfri prisoner, she felt reasonably confident in her ability to navigate their data systems. Lieutenant Ibarra would accompany her, both as protection and because his unique control over the transformation might prove relevant to their search. The infiltration proceeded smoothly. While Chen's team created a diversion in the archive's secondary storage facility, Santos and Ibarra slipped into the primary data core, a vast chamber where crystalline data structures housed the collective knowledge of 63 spacefaring civilizations. "Remarkable," Santos whispered as she connected her interface device to a data node. "Their storage medium is organic crystal with quantum properties. It's storing information in dimensions beyond the 3 physical ones we perceive." Ibarra maintained vigilance while Santos worked. "How can you possibly read this?" "I'm not reading all of it. I'm searching for specific markers related to Earth, humans, and these precursors," she explained, her fingers dancing across her device. The Velfri language shares structural similarities with at least 14 other Conclave species. That suggests a common origin point. An alert flashed on her screen. There, historical records from over 50,000 years ago. The precursor diaspora. The data unfolded before them, translated in real time. Santos' expression shifted from concentration to shock. "This can't be right," she murmured, rechecking her translation parameters. "What is it?" Ibarra asked, noticing her distress. According to these records, the precursors weren't a single species. They were a collective of advanced civilizations that reached a technological singularity together. Santos highlighted sections of data as she spoke. They experimented with creating new life forms throughout the galaxy. Essentially, most conclave species are their abandoned experiments. And humans. Santos stared at the screen, her voice dropping to a whisper. We weren't an abandoned experiment. We were a weapons system. She expanded a particular file, revealing genetic sequences alongside technical specifications. The Precursors faced an enemy they called the Void Collective, entities that existed partially outside conventional reality. They created humans specifically to combat these entities, engineering the Lazarus Complex as an activation protocol that would trigger when needed. Why don't we remember any of this? Abara asked. Because we were never meant to activate until the threat returned, Santos said, downloading the critical files. The Precursors seeded Earth with our ancestors, then deliberately regressed our technology and memory. We were supposed to develop naturally, without knowledge of our purpose, until the moment we were needed. Abara's expression darkened. So the first contact with the Velfri wasn't random, Santos confirmed. According to this data, the Conclave has been systematically searching for precursor weapon systems for centuries. The attack on the Harmony Station was a deliberate test to see if we would transform. A sudden alarm blared through the archive. Santos disconnected her device as Abara received Chen's urgent communication. Containment breach. Archive security has detected unauthorized access. As they rushed toward the extraction point, Santos caught Abara's arm. You need to understand. What we become during transformation isn't an evolutionary accident or a hidden monster. It's exactly what we were designed to be. The Lazarus Complex isn't a primitive survival mechanism. It's advanced technology disguised as biology. Then humanity's directive to exterminate all who've seen our true face, Abara began, is completely backward, Santos finished. We were created to be seen, to be found when the darkness returns. The Nemesis hung in the shadow of a gas giant, its systems powered down to minimal levels as Captain West convened an emergency meeting in the ship's conference room. The senior officers gathered around the table while Dr. Santos projected the translated precursor archives onto the central display. We've been operating under false assumptions from the beginning, Darius stated, his voice steady despite the weight of their discovery. Our mission to eliminate witnesses to humanity's transformation directly contradicts our apparent purpose. Lieutenant Commander Chen frowned. With respect, Captain, we still have our orders. Admiral Chen and the Security Council were clear. They didn't have this information, Darius countered. He turned to Dr. Santos. Walk us through it again. Santos highlighted key sections of the translated data. The Precursors created multiple specialized species throughout the galaxy. Most were abandoned when the Precursors either ascended to a higher dimensional state or were destroyed by the Void Collective. The historical records are unclear. What is clear is that humans were specifically engineered to combat the Void entities. And the transformation is the weapon, Chief Engineer Hikaru asked. More like an activation protocol, Santos explained. The Lazarus Complex alters our perception and physical capabilities to interact with entities that exist partially outside conventional reality. We were designed as interdimensional guardians, and apparently, we're not the only weapon system the Precursors created. Communications Officer Rodriguez pointed to a blinking alert on his console. Captain, long-range sensors have detected a Conclave fleet approaching our position. 7 vessels, heavily armed. They tracked us from the archive, Chen concluded grimly. Darius stood silent for a moment, weighing options that would have seemed unthinkable weeks ago. We can't outrun them, and fighting would only delay the inevitable. It's time for a new approach. Lieutenant Abara, you once suggested revelation instead of extermination. I believe you were right. Abara straightened in his chair. Sir, we're going to reveal ourselves on our terms, Darius explained. Open a direct channel to the Conclave fleet. Request parley under the protected encounter protocols mentioned in the archive data. The bridge crew exchanged uncertain glances as Rodriguez established the connection. To everyone's surprise, the lead Conclave vessel responded immediately, accepting the request for diplomatic contact. 6 hours later, Captain West stood in the Nemesis converted cargo bay, now arranged as a neutral meeting ground. Beside him were Dr. Santos and Lieutenant Abara. The cargo bay doors opened to admit 3 Conclave representatives, a Velfri elder with elaborate skin patterns, a towering insectoid being, and to Darius' shock, Keswick himself. Captain West of Earth, Keswick greeted him in carefully practiced English. I had hoped we would meet under better circumstances. You've been monitoring our pursuit, Darius observed. The Velfri elder's skin rippled with blue-green patterns. We have observed your restraint. Your capture of Technician Sorrel could have ended in elimination, yet you chose understanding instead. We know what you believe us to be, Darius stated directly. These warriors of renewal you've been searching for. The insectoid being clicked its mandibles, the translation coming through moments later. For generations, the Conclave has sought the guardians the precursors promised would arise when the darkness returns. Many species claimed the title. None demonstrated the capacity. Darius exchanged glances with Abara, who nodded slightly. We can demonstrate our capabilities, but I want assurances first. Earth's location and the nature of our abilities remain classified unless we agree otherwise. Acceptable terms, the Velfri elder agreed. Lieutenant Abara stepped forward into the center of the cargo bay. What you are about to witness is not aggression. It is demonstration only. With controlled breathing and focused concentration, Abara initiated a partial transformation. His features sharpened, muscles densified beneath his uniform, and his eyes took on the distinctive luminescent quality. Unlike the chaotic transformations on the Harmony station, Abara maintained perfect control, the process stopping precisely where he willed it. The Conclave representatives watched in sullen silence, the Velfri elder's skin patterns shifting to deep indigo, a sign of reverence, according to Dr. Santos' cultural notes. The renewal protocol, the elder whispered. After 50,000 years, the Guardians awaken. Before discussions could continue, the cargo bay doors slid open again. Admiral Helena Chen stood in the entrance, flanked by Marines from Earth's Second Fleet. Captain West, she said coldly, you appear to be violating Earth's most critical directive. For 3 tense days, Earth's fleet and Conclave vessels maintained an uneasy standoff in orbit around the gas giant. Aboard the Nemesis, Captain West had somehow convinced Admiral Chen to withhold immediate action while diplomatic discussions continued. The ship's laboratory had been converted into a joint research center where Dr. Santos worked alongside Conclave scientists, studying the full potential of the Lazarus complex. The transformation we've witnessed is merely stage 1, Dr. Santos explained to Admiral Chen and the assembled officers. Holographic displays showed detailed scans of Lieutenant Abara's neural pathways before, during, and after transformation. What we've been calling the true face is actually an intermediate adaptation state, a bridge between our normal perception and something far more complex. Admiral Chen studied the data with narrowed eyes. You're saying the monstrous appearance is a side effect, not the purpose. Precisely, Santos confirmed. The physical changes occur because our bodies are adapting to perceive and interact with dimensional frequencies beyond normal human capability. The precursors designed us as sensors and guardians against threats that exist partially outside conventional reality. "Show me," Chen demanded. Lieutenant Ibarra entered the laboratory, accompanied by Keswick and a conclave neuroscientist, a graceful, avian being with feathered sensory appendages. After 3 weeks of intensive training under conclave guidance, Ibarra had mastered techniques that modified the transformation process. "This is the control protocol," Ibarra explained as he seated himself in the center of the monitoring equipment. "With proper preparation, the transition can be directed along specific neural pathways." The observers watched intently as Ibarra closed his eyes and regulated his breathing. The monitoring equipment registered increasing activity in his pineal gland and along specialized neural clusters that normal humans didn't possess. Unlike his previous transformations, this time there were no visible physical changes, no sharpening features or densifying muscle tissue. Instead, a subtle luminescence appeared beneath his skin, following the patterns of his nervous system. When Ibarra opened his eyes, they glowed with an inner light that seemed to reflect colors not found in the normal spectrum. "I can see them," he said quietly. "The dimensional boundaries, the places where our reality connects to others." Admiral Chen stepped forward. "What exactly do you perceive, Lieutenant?" "Layers," Ibarra answered, his voice resonating strangely. "Our universe is nested within others. The barriers between them are thinning in certain regions of space." He pointed toward a seemingly empty corner of the laboratory. "There's a quantum fold there, a place where something could pass through from another state of existence." The conclave neuroscientist's feathers rippled with excitement. "The perception protocol functions precisely as the ancient texts described. The Guardians can perceive the approach of the void entities before they fully materialize in our dimension." Admiral Chen remained skeptical. "These abilities are impressive, but they don't justify abandoning our security protocols. If knowledge of this spreads—" She was interrupted by an urgent communication from the fleet's sensor array. Long-range probes at the edge of explored space had detected massive energy anomalies, entire star systems going dark in sequential patterns. The data matched exactly the ancient precursor warnings of the Void Collective's approach. "How long do we have?" Darius asked the conclave representatives. The Velfi elder's skin darkened to a deep indigo. "Months, perhaps. The patterns suggest systematic consumption of consciousness across dimensional boundaries. They feed on sentience itself." Admiral Chen studied the data in silence before turning to Captain West. "It seems I need to revise my assessment of our directive, Captain. Assemble a team of your best transformation candidates. We need more Guardians awakened immediately." As the briefing concluded, Dr. Santos approached Lieutenant Ibarra, who remained in his illuminated state. "How does it feel?" she asked quietly. "Like remembering something I never knew I'd forgotten," Ibarra replied. "This is what we were made for, Maya. Not to hide in fear of being seen, but to stand as watchers between worlds. The true protocol isn't about transformation. It's about awakening." The combined human conclave fleet assembled at the edge of the Proxima Centaurus system, Earth's nearest stellar neighbor and the chosen battleground. Admiral Chen had insisted on keeping the coming conflict away from Earth, while the Conclave Council had provided their most advanced vessels and technology. For 2 months, selected humans had undergone intensive training in controlling the Awakening Protocol, guided by Lieutenant Ibarra and the Conclave specialists. Captain West stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance a hybrid vessel incorporating both human and conclave systems. Through the viewports, he could see the distant smudge of darkness spreading across the stars, not a physical phenomenon, but a distortion in reality itself. "All vessels report ready, Captain," Lieutenant Commander Chen announced, her voice steady despite the tension permeating the bridge. Darius nodded. "Deploy the sensor buoys. Let's get a clearer picture of what we're facing." The advanced quantum sensors, designed by Dr. Santos based on precursor specifications, activated in sequence. The main display revealed what normal instrumentation couldn't detect, a vast, spreading network of dimensional fractures, through which amorphous entities were beginning to emerge. "The Void Collective," Dr. Santos whispered, standing beside Darius. "They exist primarily in a parallel dimensional state. That's why conventional matter can't interact with them directly." Admiral Chen's voice came through from her command vessel. "All Guardian units, prepare for synchronized protocol activation. Remember your training, perception first, then interaction." Lieutenant Ibarra led the first wave of Guardian units, 30 humans who had mastered the controlled transformation. Their shuttlecraft approached the dimensional boundary where the void entities were most concentrated. From the flagship, Darius watched the sensor readings as Ibarra and his team initiated the awakening protocol. Unlike the chaotic transformations of their first encounters, these were precise and controlled. The Guardians' neural systems illuminated in sequence, allowing them to perceive the void entities in their native state. For the first time, humans could see their ancient enemy, consciousness predators that fed on sentient awareness itself, leaving only empty husks behind. The first engagement proved both promising and terrifying. The Guardians could perceive and interact with the void entities, disrupting their feeding patterns, but conventional weapons passed harmlessly through them. When 3 conclave vessels ventured too close to the dimensional fracture, the void entities swarmed them, draining all conscious life aboard in seconds. "We need more than just perception." Admiral Chen's voice was taut with urgency. "We need to close those fractures." Dr. Santos studied the ancient precursor data one final time. "There's one protocol we haven't attempted, the harmonic convergence. It requires multiple Guardians synchronized in a collective consciousness state." "The risk?" Darius asked. "Unknown," Santos admitted. "The precursors designed us for this purpose, but they never documented a successful implementation." As the void entities began overwhelming their defenses, Admiral Chen made the call. "All Guardian units converge on the flagship. We're implementing the harmonic protocol." Within the hour, 117 humans with active awakening protocols gathered in the flagship's central chamber. Lieutenant Ibarra stood at the center, surrounded by concentric circles of Guardians. Dr. Santos monitored their neural patterns as they synchronized their consciousness into a unified field. "It's working," she reported, watching in awe as their individual neural signatures began to harmonize into a single pattern. "They're creating a collective consciousness network, exactly as the precursors designed." From the bridge, Darius and Admiral Chen watched as a new kind of energy emanated from the ship, a luminescent field that expanded outward, interacting directly with the dimensional fractures. Where it touched, the tears in reality began to seal. The void entities reacted violently, abandoning their attacks on other vessels to swarm toward the flagship. For a moment, it seemed they would overwhelm the Guardians' defense. Then Lieutenant Ibarra, at the center of the harmonic field, opened his eyes, now glowing with the combined consciousness of all participants. "We see you now," he said, his voice resonating with multiple harmonic overtones. "This reality is protected." The collective consciousness field pulsed outward in a single powerful wave. Where it touched the void entities, they dispersed like smoke and wind, forced back through the dimensional fractures which sealed behind them. As the harmonic field dissipated, the Guardians gradually returned to individual consciousness. Lieutenant Abarro was the last to emerge, his expression one of profound understanding. Their return, he told Admiral Chen and Captain West. This was only their first incursion, but now we know what we are, what we were made to be. Admiral Chen nodded slowly. Then Earth's directive must change. She looked out at the stars, now clear of the darkness that had threatened them. No longer will we exterminate those who've seen our true face. Instead, we will stand as guardians between worlds, as we were always meant to be.